Catherine Corliss heard of the existence of the site during her research. She also learned of two men who, as boys, had happened upon a hollow concrete area. They recalled that the concrete area contained bones.
Skulls piled up, top of each other.
That was in 1975, 14 years after the home had closed and 4 years after the building of the housing estate had begun.
This used to be our general play area, and in the early 70s it was like a derelict building, building site. They were in the process of building this housing estate. And one day my friend and I, Barry, there used to be a little apple orchard in there, and that's what we were in, we were getting apples. So we jumped off the wall, and when we landed, we felt a hollow, and there was a crack in the slab. So we actually pried it open. When we pulled across, like, you could see that there was skeleton remains there, like bones. As 10 and 12-year-old children, we weren't supposed to come across this.
And you could tell that they were the bones of children.
Yeah. We knew there were bones, and we knew there was that of, either children or infants, because they were small. We were told then the next day that the priest had come up and said a prayer and not to go in there again. But we came in straight away, and the whole site had been levelled and cleared.
A neighbour came into my house one day, and she said that one of the young boys out the back had a stick with a skull in it. So I examined it, and I asked him, where did he get it? And he said there was more in a hole up there, pointing up to the right. When I went over there with the other two women, and we were looking to see what we could see, and I kind of want to look in, kind of to see what it was, but the ground wouldn't come into my feet. It was very wet. It was after heavy rain, and I ended up down in the hole. And the women grabbed me by the shoulders here to hold me, and I said, wait. I remember saying that. About maybe, could be 6 or 8 feet in front of me, I noticed something, and it was forever like a stairs going away from me, like the steps were going like that. That's what my thinking of it was, because there was all little bundles laid on each step, and they were rolled up like a litre bottle, and that you'd rolled it up in something, and it was like cloth that had gone black or grey, and I knew it was something rolled in that, and they were all over the place in there. And I said, pull me out now. And I was pretty shook up and mucky.
Mary returned sometime later, accompanied by a local woman who had worked at the home several years previously.
She kind of bent over like that and had a look into the hole. And, oh yes, she said, they're all in there now, them little babies. I often brought one out there. And she said, there's a tunnel going back in there over to the hospital, and she pointed over her left shoulder. Over there, she said, that's where the babies were born. And I would have many times brought one down there and left them there, little infants.
To fully understand this, we need to imagine the place as it was 50 years ago. A network of tunnels spread out from the home towards former cesspit systems on the outer edges of the property. It was no doubt in this maze that the bodies of the children were transported and buried.
Now, these cesspits and tunnels we're talking about, they're 7 foot high. They could be walked through. They were 4 foot wide. They would have been done in red brick, so they would resemble a burial chamber. So again,
all of this story exploded because of the Tuam grave. Therefore, it was a natural next step for the Commission to hire in a team of forensic experts to analyse this site.
Disposed of next to a disused sewage.
The world's media picked up on the story, and in 2015, a commission of investigation was launched. Beforehand, the Mail on Sunday newspaper asked Kevin Bright to scan the site with ground-penetrating radar. He identified 2 areas just less than a metre under the surface.
From the scans, we were able to identify this particular area from about 0.7 to 0.9 from the ground down. We hit the first anomaly, and that went on down to approximately just over 2 metres. And that continued for the length of the wall to the right-hand side as you enter the graveyard.
When the Commission did their own ground-penetrating radar surveys, they got similar results.
Does not breathe.
The Tuam case reflects what I've already been doing for a number of years in the north of Ireland. We have been working for a long time now to give recognition to these areas of marginalised infant burial.
Tony Maguire scanned the area believed to contain the bodies. Initial results corroborated the clues and visual testimony, indicating that the babies were buried here, right beneath her feet.
But actually, it adds great weight to the evidence that we've already collected. Allow me to show you. If you imagine the back of this section is where we're standing now. There's one single anomaly that runs right along.
The anomaly Tony mentions concerns these small red spots which appear on the scan in the tunnel and cesspit area, where Franny and Mary saw the bones and the bodies. Scientific analysis has therefore confirmed that something has been buried there. Tony knows from experience that it will require only quite basic excavation work to uncover bodies or small coffins.
If you had all the green taken off here and you let the surface of the ground dry out and you could see the footprint of each grave that would potentially be here, then you would very quickly and very easily see a grouping of small little individual graves. You would know that that section of burial is definitely children. This is my church. We expect our priests and our nuns to be just as accountable as anyone else in a position of power. And we will get it. It will happen, because I will not stop until it does.
We paid money every week.
Where did you get that information from?
We paid money every week. Here, I'm a survivor, I know the information. I'm a survivor.
Right, we're going to just wrap up this. Just one question left from this gentleman, and then
I know.
Okay, this gentleman in the blue jacket, please.
And to tell that woman up in the front, excuse me, I want to answer your question about Catherine's Cohen. I did give my evidence and I gave my truth to Judge Yvonne Murphy for the Commission of Inquiry. And I told them how the babies were treated, the mothers were treated, and the children, and all about the reject wards.
I have explained that many times, that that is not the case at all, because from my records, from all maps, most of the houses are built where the workhouse, which became the mother and baby home, that's where a lot of the houses were actually on the foundations of the home itself.
So
and
not
it was
in the
massive.
outer reaches of it, yes?
Yes, it was a huge building.
Okay.
And there was concrete yards at the time, while the mother and baby home was there. So we know that it's at the back where the soft ground was.
Yes.
At the few acres out the back.
Okay. That's where
the burials are.
They said that they had no records. All the records were handed over to the Western Health Board. Now, I have never believed that. They didn't help. They did nothing for us. Instead, they hired a very expensive PR company to speak for them. And that's been the way since the first.
Bodies of 800 children, long dead, found in septic tank at former Irish home for unwed mothers.
Galway in the west, the remains of 800 babies and young children have been discovered dumped inside a disused septic tank.
And the journalist who wrote Philomena about a woman's search for her son, taken by Irish nuns, could hardly contain his horror.
In nearly 2 decades as a foreign correspondent, I covered stories of mass graves in far-flung locations in Eastern Europe and Russia, but never did I expect to be covering a mass grave from modern times on my own doorstep.
In Ireland, the impact was even greater, with several papers likening it to the Holocaust, and the Irish Independent comparing those nuns in Tuam to the butchers of Belsen, Rwanda and Srebrenica. But how reliable was this story? And why were there no pictures of the bodies? Had good taste for once prevailed? Well, no. You see, no babies had been found, nor indeed had the septic tank. Oh yes, and did we forget to tell you that those 796 children died of natural causes, with measles, influenza, pneumonia, TB and whooping cough topping the list? So how did this story get so out of hand? Well, if you're looking for a culprit, the Daily Mail group's your man, starting with the Irish Mail on Sunday, which began the hue and cry.
A mass grave of 800 babies.
The Mail's article on 25th of May said the remains of those 800 children were most likely interred in a concrete tank beside the home. So, what was their evidence?
12. Mr. Sweeney recalled,
It was a concrete slab. We used to be in there playing, but there was always something hollow underneath it. So we decided to bust it open, and it was full to the brim of skeletons.
Now that would surely have been a shocking discovery. But the two boys had seen perhaps 20 skeletons nearly 40 years ago. And the water tank, if that's what it was, had not been sighted since. What's more, Catherine Corliss had been calling it a crypt. Yet none of this stopped the Mail's British cousins at the UK Mail Online from beating it up into an international sensation.
Mass septic tank grave containing the skeletons of 800 babies at site of Irish home for unmarried mothers.
Note that in this story, published in Australia, it was now a septic tank full to the brim with 800 baby skeletons. And after this was picked up by news agencies, AP and AFP, it was just a small step for US websites like BuzzFeed, the Boston Globe and New York Daily News to report that 800 bodies had actually been found.
800 skeletons of babies found inside septic tank at former Irish home for unwed mothers. Report.
That, of course, was bullshit. As were claims in the Irish press that the dead babies had not been given Christian burials by order of the Catholic Church. And this soon became clear as Spike's Brendan O'Neill examined the evidence, or lack of it, and revealed what a beat-up it was, inquiring as he did so,
how did speculation that some children out of 796 might have been buried in a former septic tank become news headlines about 800 dead children having been found in a septic tank, leading to comparisons being made between Ireland's old nuns and the architects of the Nazi Holocaust?
How indeed. But, as Spike so eloquently observed, it was proof of the maxim that a lie will go round the world while truth is pulling its boots on.